So if you were to guess, just take a wild guess, or based on your knowledge and your experience of life and your own experience of yourself and others, if you were to guess, what would you guess is the single biggest inhibitor in people's lives that keeps them from living boldly, that keeps them from living their passions and being on fire and truly going after a life that they've created, that is authentic to who they are and that they love? What would you bet is the single biggest inhibitor? Well, this is something that I pose to all of my clients. This is where I'm going with so many of my clients. I've counseled literally the top echelons of the food chain for decades. And I was a pastor before that. I was an NCAA strength coach for a while. So I've been counseling people for a very, very long time, coaching them in their lives, counseling them, what have you. And what I've found is that most people will answer that question by saying fear of failure. Most people believe that what keeps them from going after that which they really want in life is their own fear of failing. And I always say, no, that's not it. It's not it. Failure in and of itself is morally neutral. Failure in and of itself is nothing. So you lose some money, so you fall down, so whatever. It's the event itself is really nothing. It has no intrinsic positive or negative value. What makes it so negative for people is what happens afterwards. I'll ask clients, when they say, well, Sven, I'm most afraid of failing, I'll ask the client, what is it that you most fear hearing? What is it that you most fear happening to you if you do fail? If you do go bankrupt, if the idea doesn't go great, but in fact ends up looking stupid, what do you fear people saying? What do you fear happening? And they'll say, well, something like, oh, I fear people saying, see, I told you so, or I fear people saying, well, that was stupid, or I fear people thinking I'm a failure, or thinking I'm bad, or thinking I'm dumb. So it's not the event itself of failing, it's what you fear after. It's what you fear people will think of you. That is what keeps people from going after that which they really want in life. And so this is why, for me personally, I get kind of annoyed when I see in social media or on TV or on the radio, on podcasts, or even in conversations, when I hear people say, oh, you gotta stand up for what you believe and you gotta go after it no matter what people say. And it's inspiring and it's true, but people say it, but they don't actually do it. They don't actually do it because they're terrified of what the hell people are gonna think. I have the success that I have today. Not that I'm uber successful or whatever, but I have the success today because back when I was in my teens and my 20s and my 30s, I looked really fucking stupid to a lot of people and they weren't afraid to tell me so. I was a fucking outcast, right? I was willing, and it was hard. I was willing to look stupid. I was willing to disappoint. I was willing to say no to the people who were most influential in my life. And that's hard as fuck. And if you don't think it's hard as fuck, you've never fucking tried it. Either that, or you're just doing whatever they tell you to do. You don't even know what the fucking word no is. But to be willing to look stupid. Are you willing to look stupid, foolish to your high school classmates that you probably don't have much contact with anymore anyway? But they're in your fucking head, aren't they? Are you willing to look stupid to your girlfriend, to your brother, to your sister, to your parents? Are you willing to have them look at you sideways? Are you willing to have them question you and undermine you? Are you willing to endure them thinking they can tell you what the fuck to do with your life? Are you willing to stand up and say no to the people you love most? Because those are the voices. Those are the voices that are in your fucking head that you're afraid that keep you, that you're afraid of, that keep you from living a bold life. Those are the fucking voices. Trust me. So, how foolish are you willing to look? Because I find that success is almost directly correlated to a person's willingness to look foolish. It's interesting, if you've never watched it before, go and watch Steve Jobs' commencement address at Stanford University. I think it was 2005, 2007, somewhere in there. He ends his entire commencement speech with one little phrase that he remembered from his childhood on some calendar. And it simply said, stay hungry, stay foolish. What I've found to be directly correlated is a person's willingness to look stupid. A person's willingness to endure the criticisms of others is directly correlated to their boldness, is directly correlated to what they're willing to do, to how many times they're willing to fail. And you know what makes it harder to go after big dreams when we're older? When you get into your 30s, Maybe you get married, maybe you have a kid, maybe you have a mortgage. Do you know what makes it harder? Is there's so much more at risk. There's so much more at play. You gotta have some big set of fucking balls to roll the dice when you got other people counting on you for their living, right? So to do it in your teens, in your 20s, that's the fucking time. But it's so hard then. It's so hard to stand up then and be bold because you've got so much pressure on you, baggage on you from your fucking past, and your parents and your family and maybe your friends, whoever raised you, whoever was around you, they still have so much influence in your life inside your fucking head. And you're so afraid to say no. You're so afraid of their criticism. I always tell people the single biggest fear in life is not the fear of failure. It's not the fear of the unknown. Hell, entrepreneurs love the unknown. When they know what they want to do with their life, they don't know how to get there, but the fucking fun is figuring it out. The fucking fun is the unknowns. When you go to the fucking amusement park, you don't ride that roller coaster for the tick, 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 for the ride up, for the known. No, you're riding that fucking roller coaster for the down, for the unknown, for the zoom, loop-de-loops, highs, lows. That's why you ride the roller coaster, the unknown, the exhilaration. No, it's not the fear of the unknown that cripples people. It's not even the fear of failure. It's the fear of the known. You know exactly what your brother will say. If you speak your truth, if you live your truth, you know exactly what your mom will say. You know exactly what your father will say, or what your buddies will say, or what society will say. You know exactly what they'll fucking say. And it scares the fucking shit out of you. And so it's just like, nah, I'm just gonna keep that shit inside. I'm not gonna say what I really feel. I'm not gonna go after what I really want because I'm fucking terrified of what they're gonna say. I'm fucking terrified of what they're gonna think of me. I am afraid of disappointing them, feeling that disappointment. And you got to develop mechanisms for shirking, for letting go of people's disappointment. You got to develop mechanisms for pulling out that fear. The people who truly master boldness are the ones who have mastered their own inner self. That's where the work happens. It's not this shit out here. The real power comes from your capacity to excise, to cut out, to remove people's voices from your fucking head, people's expectations, fear of disappointing people, and the whopper, fear of looking stupid. If you're afraid of looking stupid, you're never gonna live a bold fucking life. You won't. Nobody has great success, nobody, without first risking and risking and risking and risking again, looking stupid. Looking the fool. Nobody. Fuck Steve Jobs himself. The company that he built, Apple, he got kicked out of. I mean, they didn't like him. How humiliating, how publicly, globally humiliating. But it's that willingness to be bold. It's that willingness to look the fool. You want to know the difference between where you're at now and where you want to be? It's directly correlated to the fact that inside of you, you're afraid of people's voices. And it's one thing to talk about this shit, but as I tell my clients, it's one thing to know it. It's a whole completely different animal to live it. Knowing it and living it are two different things. Knowing that you got to stand up to people's voices and hearing those words or reading that quote on Instagram, it's like, oh yeah, that's what I got to do. That's what I got to do. But then fucking executing that shit, that's a whole different fucking animal. And doing it time and time and time again. I get people coming to me now wanting to collaborate on this project or on a book or on a, creating workshops or whatever the fuck they want to, building a business. People wanting to collaborate with me now, right? Because I'm at this level of success. But anybody who knows me knows that I haven't always been there. I didn't come out of the fucking womb with what I've got now and with the work that I do now. And what I've got now isn't the things or the fame or the attributes or the money. That's not what I got. What I got is a life doing the shit I love to do. And I've got a life where I'm doing very, very little of the shit I don't want to do. That to me is success. Money, I can live without it, and I have lived without it. I spent 2.5 years living among and ministering to the homeless. I slept on concrete every single fucking night for 2.5 years. I'd given up all of my life possessions. You don't think people thought I was fucking crazy? You don't think my old high school classmates thought to themselves, hey, I'm living in this fucking $600,000 house, man, in, Minneapolis, and you're living on the streets of fucking, Los Angeles, Oakland, California, you loser. You don't think I had to fucking overcome that shit? The real power comes from your own spiritual disciplines, cleaning out the shit that is obstructing your own spirit. That's what took me from here to here. It was my willingness to look stupid. It was my willingness to say no to my father, whom I loved, and he loved me. He told me every single day of my life, but he didn't understand what I was doing, and I disappointed him many, many, many times. But in my head, the thought is, the child doesn't exist to make the parent proud. The parent exists to support the child, and that's exactly what my father fucking did, even though I knew he was disappointed at times. I'd be willing to look stupid to my brother, the one that I was closest to at the time. I'd be willing to disappoint my first wife. I had to be willing to say no because I had to follow my fucking dream, my fucking boldness and go after what the fuck I wanted. But I had to be willing to disappoint them and look fucking stupid to a lot of fucking people. And it's because I took all of those risks, and not just taking the risk, but let go of those voices and push them out of my head. It's because I did that I had the power to take the risks. And I took so many risks, and many of them didn't work. Many of them looked fucking dumb as shit. But I kept doing them because it was what I was called to do. And eventually, I built it to here. And now other people want to collaborate with me here. But where the fuck were they back here? And I'm not bitter or anything. Shit, I used to reach out to people who are successful. And you get a fuck ton of no's, especially as a writer. Do you know how many rejections I got? My first book, I think I got 65 rejections from agents and editors at publishing houses. 65. Now I'm represented by the top literary agency in the country. And people want to work with me. But my mom didn't spit me out of her womb this way. No, I had to be willing to let down even the very womb, the very mother that birthed me. I had to be willing to endure the verbal assaults, the criticism, the sarcasm, the whatever of everyone around me. That's what got me here. So if you're afraid of looking foolish and you're not willing to push that through that fear, you will never have the bold life you want. I guarantee it. Matter of absolute fact. Your willingness to look foolish, your willingness to look stupid is what will drive your capacity to take the boldest risks and go after that which breathes life into your motherfucking soul. So, do you have the guts? Have a kick-ass day.